My name is Alex, and perhaps because of my impending examinations and the very real possibility of failure, I've been thinking a lot about the concept of free will and whether any of us can really be held accountable for our actions. Now, I've already made a video discussing the implications of life without free will with my friend Stephen from Rationality Rules, who also recently discussed free will with Matt Dillahunty and made his own video on the topic as well. Links are, of course, in the description. But I realised that I've never actually talked openly about why I don't believe in free will, except for my somewhat obscure book review of Sam Harris's book on my website. So I thought that today would be the day. Why? Well, I don't know, and, well, I can't know. That's kind of the thing. I'd recommend that you watch Stephen's video, which outlines some of the more scientific arguments against free will, but to complement that video, I want to take a more philosophical and purely logical approach to the problem. It seems to me that whilst helpful and endlessly interesting, it isn't necessary to reference neuroscience to make a good case against free will, so I won't be doing that today. Now, one of the best-known current critics of free will is, of course, Sam Harris, whose short book you should all read. It's what really got me thinking about this originally about a year ago, and who is, of course, a neuroscientist. But you can also find discussions of free will in the works of earlier philosophers like Bertrand Russell, and for this video I'll be all but ignoring neuroscience. Again, that perspective is covered well by Stephen. So with that out of the way, let's get into this. Here is my case against free will. Now, the first issue that we have to face is, of course, the definition of free will. And since when I'm debating this, I'm the one who's denying the existence of something that someone else believes in, it really needs to be that someone else's definition that I'm using, which is why a video like this can be quite tricky. Now, this doesn't absolve me of any burden of proof. Unlike my passive atheism, I make the active claim that I think free will does not exist. But I can only do this once I'm sure that we all mean the same thing by free will. So for ease's sake, I'll go with the most succinct and least controversial definition that I've been able to come up with, which is this. Free will is the ability to have acted differently. And what I mean by this is that if we were to wind back the clock in any situation, it was completely within the realm of possibility for you to have acted differently to the way that you actually did. The definition that I've been able to come up with, which is this. Free will is the ability to have acted differently. And what I mean by this is that if we were to wind back the clock in any situation, it was completely within the realm of possibility for you to have acted differently to the way that you actually did. For instance, it would have been completely possible for me to have said bonjour at the beginning of this video instead of good morning, and the choice to say the latter was completely within my control. The idea is that you are in control of your actions, and any decisions that you make are determined only by your own conscious self. But the thing is, there are so many things wrong with this that it's difficult to know where to start. I'll borrow a line of thought from Dr. Harris here. Let's begin by considering what would have to be true in order for us to truly have total free will, to be able to have acted differently. Well, firstly, we would need to be aware of everything that is influencing our actions, including environmental factors, our precise mood, the influence of other people, the influence of past experiences, and more. Secondly, we would need to be in complete control of every one of them. Neither of these are true or even possible. Now, you might concede this, but not think it a problem. Okay, you say, so I can't control all of the factors that led me to like the taste of ice cream, but on a more mundane level, I'm still in complete control over whether I choose chocolate or vanilla. Not so fast. Again, consider this most simple of choices, chocolate or vanilla. Or, if it's easier, consider the last mundane choice that you had to make. Walk or drive this morning, go out or stay in tonight. Think about why you chose one or would choose one over the other. So what would make me choose vanilla over chocolate? Well, there is only one possible answer, which I'll elaborate on shortly. I would need to want it more than chocolate. In order to choose vanilla, I'd need to want vanilla. But is this something I can control? Can I control what it is that I want? Not a chance. Consider the fact that you, presumably, don't want to punch your mother in the face. Can you choose to want to do that? This isn't the same thing as choosing to do it. Could you choose to want to? No, no more than I could choose to want vanilla over chocolate. I just want chocolate more than vanilla. That's just a fact about myself that I can't change. But okay, let's go further, you say. Of course, I can't choose to want vanilla over chocolate when I really want chocolate, but what if I just decided, in the full knowledge that I would prefer chocolate, to go for vanilla anyway, just for the sake of regaining my free will and nothing else? Well, I'm afraid you'd still face the same problem. The exact same problem, in fact. In order to do that, you'd need to want to regain your free will as you see it. Why is your desire to prove a point like this stronger than the desire to have the ice cream you prefer? It just is. And if it happened not to be, you'd have chosen the ice cream that you do prefer. The key takeaway is this: you cannot determine your wants. Think of something you want. Try to not want it. Think of something you don't want and try to want it. It's not possible. And even if it were, in order to change a don't want into a want, you'd need to want it. And vice versa, to change a want into a don't want, you'd need to not want it. You simply can't control what you want. Now, that's one piece of the puzzle, and it may seem odd to leave it there, but just wait until we put them together. Okay, the next piece of the puzzle is to convince you of this fact, that there are only two reasons, none more in any circumstances, for which you will ever do anything. In fact, it's impossible for you to ever do anything for any reason other than one of these two. And those two reasons are because you want to or because you're forced to. And this is fundamentally important and worth really understanding and thinking about. You will only ever do anything in your entire life because you either want to or are forced to. That's it. No exceptions. And because of the fact that nobody seems to believe me on this point at first, I'll give you a common objection that I hear all the time. In fact, I recently spoke to ex-NFL player Arian Foster about free will on his podcast. Link again will be in the description once it's up. And he, playing devil's advocate, brought up the following. Consider exercise. Consider going to the gym. Most people don't want to go to the gym, but they do it anyway. Surely this is an example of someone doing something freely and not because they want to or because they're forced to. Not really. Because there has to be a reason for going to the gym. And for most people, and for Arian, it's something like to stay healthy, to stay in shape, to live longer, whatever it may be. So we have to ask, again, the same fundamental question. Why is the desire to stay healthy stronger than the desire to go to the gym? It just is. Or maybe it isn't, and some people stay at home and eat junk food instead. For these people, why is the desire to sit around or to eat junk food stronger than the desire to be healthy? It just is. Again, remember, you can't control the strengths or objects of your desires. It's they that control you. And if that doesn't unease you, repeat those words again to yourself until it does. So even when you don't want to do something but you do it anyway, this is only ever because of a stronger and equally uncontrollable desire to do something that requires you to do it. In other words, all of your actions really are controlled by your wants. And I really mean this. This is what really convinced me of the non-existence of free will. If you aren't convinced that everything you do is either because you want to or because you're forced to, please pause the video and just really think about this. I promise that any example you can think of has a hidden want lying behind it. Leave an example in the comments if you have to. I'm sure someone else can find it if you can't. So now, as promised, let's start putting this together. There are two reasons you will ever do anything, because you want to or because you're forced to. Of course, if you're forced to do something, then you're definitely not acting freely, and nobody would deny that. So that just leaves your wants. Well, we've already concluded that you can't control your wants, so actions motivated by wants aren't really free either. So being forced to do something isn't free will, and wanting to do something isn't free will. But being forced or wanting to do something are the only reasons why you do anything. Hence, free will is conclusively an illusion. Now, I use the word illusion purposefully here. One thing that nobody needs convincing of is the fact that we all feel like we do have free will. I certainly do, and so does Sam Harris, and so did Bertrand Russell as far as I know. But then, I suppose, so would an artificial intelligence that we've programmed to feel as though it does have control. And what really is the difference between a mind made of silicon and one made of flesh in relation to liberty of thought? Well, that's a topic for another video, or perhaps an episode of Black Mirror, but you can see that this illusion is incredibly important. So I just want to briefly explain why I think we feel this illusion. See that this illusion is incredibly important. So I just want to briefly explain why I think we feel this illusion. So firstly, and most obviously, it's easy to see that this illusion is mightily beneficial to our evolution as a species, and I personally have a similar speculative view of the emergence of free will to my view on the emergence of consciousness as a whole, that it only exists because it aids our survival, but it's become so complex and ingrained in our biology that we feel strangely apart from it and have developed the fortunate or unfortunate side effect of self-awareness, depending on who you ask. But more than this, I think it's because there really is a difference between jumping and being pushed. That is, there is a difference in experience between being forced to do something and doing something because you want to. Now this is something that Matt Dillahunty has alluded to, and in fact, I'll play a short clip of him here. Now this soundbite was also responded to by Stephen in a response that he made to Matt, a third video he's done on the topic. But again, though agreeing entirely with Stephen, I have more to add as well.
I'm talking about it from a conceptual standpoint. And the example that I'd used in New York was if Sam jumped off stage, that would be him as an agent taking an act of volition. It doesn't matter if it was predetermined by the universe or not. But alternately, I could throw him off the stage. And the difference between those two events sums up everything that I think is valuable about the notion of free will.
Now, this is why I wanted to be precise in my definition of free will, because for many people, the first definition they think of is the ability to do whatever you want. But I think this is misleading. This, however, is the definition I think Matt is implicitly using here, and I'll explain why. To be clear though, I don't think Matt is wrong per se, and his conversation with Stephen cleared a lot of this up, but this clip is still representative of a popular view nonetheless. The reason I think there's an experiential difference between jumping and being pushed is because if you're defining free will as the ability to do whatever you want, then you're exercising free will by jumping, but not by being pushed. But just think about that definition. What does it mean to do whatever you want? Remember, you can't control your wants, so by doing what you want, you're just acting in accordance with something that's out of your control. It's more accurate to say, rather than you can do whatever you want, that you can only do what you want. Of course that's true, we've already covered this. And it's not freedom to be told you can do anything as long as it's this. The takeaway from my video today to conclude this whole complicated and fearful affair should be this. Yes, you can do whatever you want. You just can't choose what it is that you want. And where's the freedom in that? If this video convinced you, consider why. If not, consider why not. It's out of your control. What I'm saying will either convince you or it won't, and you don't get to decide on that. But whichever way you fall, why not try exercising your free will by hitting subscribe and by watching my discussion with Stephen about the moral implications of all this. And be sure to watch his free will debunked video too, which should clear up any other objections that you might have. For instance, you think that randomness at the quantum level solves the problem? Well, just watch his video, and if I was really unoriginal, I'd say, after all, you have no choice. But that's where I'll end this video for now. Why? I don't know. Why am I still talking? Why will I stop when I eventually do stop?